All right, guys, and welcome to today's training session. Thanks for being here. If I look like a dwarf, it's because I've got a new camera and I don't know how to zoom it in just yet. So instead of standing close, I'll just sit back and you guys can just enjoy Dwarf Beyond today. All right. So today's training session I thought would be very important is about paperwork and about dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And the reason why I mention this is I was thinking the other day that Celia raised the question about should I allow pre-settlement inspection, and everybody jumped into the chat and assisted with that, and it makes you think. There's a lot of legal aspects that we deal with on a day-to-day basis that can make us be highly successful and have a lucrative career that spans for 16 years, 20 years, 30 years. But there's also things that we could do where we might make mistakes, which could bite us in the backside and end us up in a court of law, which is where we don't want to be. So I thought let's just have a bit of a chat about paperwork and about legalities and about protection. Protection not only for your vendors and protection not only for your purchasers, but protection for you as the selling agent. And I started thinking about this, and I'm the only one that's left out of a class of 40 agents back in 2009 that sat in the room when Mark Lloyd here stood up and spoke to us all when he was in his career. And I was thinking, how come I'm the only one left out of 40 agents? And I started looking into that and digging around. And some people left to become mortgage brokers, but some people lost their businesses. Some people built big businesses, such as the gentleman that I initially worked for, and then made one mistake and their entire business was gone and their entire livelihood was taken away from them, and they had to now flip into another business. And when you think about it, as a real estate agent, if we're selling just, say, 10 houses a year at, say, $10,000 a pop commission, that's $100,000. That's a wage of $75,000 after you take away the eXp split. If you lost your job tomorrow for doing the wrong thing, what job could you go to where you could earn $75,000 working part-time? And I thought about it and I thought, well, there's really nothing unless you've got a degree or you've got some sort of training or you're going to go work out in the mines or something. So you think about it, if we slip up and do the wrong thing and make a vital mistake in our careers, it's going to affect not only us, but it's going to affect everybody else that's here, and it's also going to affect our entire livelihoods. So I thought, why don't we just have a quick training session on paperwork. Lisa, you've been in the industry for a long time as well. Are there any stories of things that you've seen that people have done wrong that have cost them their livelihoods?
Oh, yeah, lots. I mean, we wear many hats when we're a real estate agent. We're the advisor, we're the therapist sometimes. The hats we don't want to wear is the solicitor hat, the conveyancer hat, the building and pest inspector hat, all of those sorts of things. And that's where agents fall down. They sort of, purport to be the expert in those things, which we're not. We've always got to put it back onto somebody else. But different things from agents telling vendors that they have a cooling off period. There's a situation here just prior to the boom where an agent who'd been in the industry for over a year, right, so should know, told a vendor that they had a cooling off period. So the vendor went looking, they found a buyer on the property. The vendor went looking to buy a property, didn't find one, went back to the solicitor and said, I want to exercise my cooling off period. And they said, you don't have one. So that vendor lost so much money, and she was going to sue the agent. I haven't spoken to her since. But, property prices went up, and instead of her buying right in Brisbane, she had to buy somewhere way out, so that guy, obviously once that, it's probably gone through now, but he's not going to be in real estate anymore. Agents that say things like, you can build townhouses on here, you can build villas on here, things like that. You don't know until you get council approval. You don't know. You've got to be very, very careful with what you say. And lots of agents I do know have been sued, as I'm sure lots of us do know. So, we've got to stick to what we know, which is marketing, negotiation, taking care of our vendors. We're project marketing more so than we're the expert on every single topic. It's always, things like the block size, which you and I were talking about yesterday, Bjorn, to say the block size is definitely 926 meters squared or whatever it is, and then RP data's wrong, and then they sue you. It's always got to be according to RP data, according to this, according to that, according to the vendors, but double check with your solicitor, double check with the building and pest inspector, double check with everyone, because anything you put in writing can come back at you. And I've seen that many, many times as well.
And it's not only things that you put in writing, but it's also what you say verbally. In a court of law, we're providing the service. So if a customer or a consumer, such as a purchaser, says, well, they said this and they said that, the court of law is going to be ruling in their favour. If it's a he said, she said matter, unless we have physical evidence to prove otherwise, the court of law will always go with the consumer, right? What they say, the customer's always right. So when you're doing things like, adverts and things like that for properties, features of a property. So 570 meter squared land size, approximately, and then you go, 138 square meters of living area, approximately. Down the bottom of all of our ads, we have a disclaimer that's put in there as well by eXp. Once you put your ad into the system, they add a little disclaimer down the bottom. It also stems back to when you're sitting down with a vendor to start with, and you're going through a sales agency agreement, right? So things like inclusions and exclusions. I've seen people write on contracts, inclusions, standard, exclusions, standard. Mate, you may as well tie a noose around your shed now, rafter, and go and hang yourself, because that's where you're heading to. You've got to be very specific with detail. So Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, to the best of your knowledge, are all of your fences on true boundaries to the best of your knowledge? Are there any fences that are encroaching? Not that we know of. Okay, none known. Has everything been done with council consent to the best of your knowledge, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor? Are you aware of anything that's been done or erected on the property without council consent? No. Well, that shed used to be a 3x3 shed, and we knocked it down and we built a 10 metre by 4 metre shed, but we didn't get council approval for it. 10 metre by 4 metre shed used to be a 3x3 metre shed. The vendors knocked it down back in 1982 and rebuilt it in 1983 without council permission. Write it in there, stipulated in there. When it comes to the contract, stipulated in there, right? We do have a thing called buyer beware, where the buyers have to do their own due diligence, which does protect us here in South Australia. Every state has their own laws and their own rules as well. So you need to understand as an agent, not just how to get a listing, not just how to prospect for business, not just how to negotiate, but you need to understand the law. Because I can tell you right now, I'm the only one left out of 40 odd people in class. And I saw my previous business that I worked with, I won't mention their name, but what happened was the gentleman decided that it would be a great idea to sell a property that was under an executor of the estate. So it was a deceased estate sale. It was with the executors, and he sold that property to his sister's husband, right? You've got to be careful who you can and can't sell property to according to laws, right? You can sell still that property to that person if it's disclosed and there's full disclosure and you use the appropriate government paperwork to disclose. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this particular purchaser is my sister's husband, and there's a process to follow to go through that, right? He then sold the property. The executor wasn't happy, cottoned onto it. I don't know the full story, but basically he wound up in court of law and that business was shut down. And that business can no longer trade as a real estate company. And he was doing, we're going back, 16 years of my career. So we're going back probably at least 12 years ago. That guy was writing $500,000, $600,000 back then, when houses were $250,000, and had his sister working for him, his two sisters working for him. There were about 12 other staff members. All of those guys all lost their jobs because of the mistake that he made. Now, you can purchase properties privately, but there's a process to go through with government regulation to put in a form. I don't know exactly what the name of the form is off the top of my head, but there are processes to follow where you can sell property to a sister or a brother, but you need to get the appropriate paperwork in order, and each state will have different laws. So what I'm saying is you've got to be specific. In real estate, we can't be vague. We have to be specific. So
can I say something, Beyond? Like,
yeah.
to the point of, I know so many agents that have had to buy air conditioners because the vendors, they haven't written it in the agreement, the listing agreement. Like I would go through and write everything, dishwasher, air conditioner, even things that you think they're not going to take. Because there was one agent up here that had to replace an air conditioner because they didn't write it in the agreement, and so luckily it was in all the photos and everything as well. But the vendors just took it, plugged it up, painted over it, and yeah, I would be writing down absolutely everything.
You've got to be extremely careful. We've got these sales agency agreements. They may look different from state to state, but basically, I'm sure that you've all got a place on here where it says inclusions and exclusions. So the fixed floor coverings will stay. Do you have a compliant smoke alarm? Yes. Light fittings will stay. Is there a solar power system? Yes or no? If there's not, don't tick it. Will the window treatments be staying? Is it a rented property? Are those curtains being installed by the tenant? So are those curtains actually going to stay with the property, or has the tenant put those curtains up, in which case the tenant can take those curtains down? You've got to be really specific. You might write garden shed. You might write rainwater tank and pump, right? You might write, there might be, I don't know, TV wall brackets, for example, that may stay, it might be outdoor barbecue to remain. That might stay in place. Anything that's going to be included with the property, you need to specifically write in there.
The big one, Bjorn, is pool cleaning equipment, mate.
I was just going to get to that, right? So people do this. They go pool equipment, right? Now, what's wrong with me writing pool equipment?
Because they could they could leave a creepy crawly and take away the other ones that they said they were going to leave or something like that. Exactly. And also too, even a dishwasher, like I've had ones before where they've had like a very expensive dishwasher. Vendors have taken it and put in some cheap, crappy one. So if it's a good quality one, sometimes, you might want to write that in as well, Miele dishwasher or whatever. It's whatever you don't want to buy for the vendor, for the buyers, make sure you include it in.
It might be very specific, right? So you can't just write pool robot. What sort of pool robot is it? It's a Dolphin S600 pool robot, right? You've got to be ultra detailed and ultra specific with every single inch of paperwork you do. I've been around for 16 years and I'm very, very anal with my paperwork. I double, quadruple, triple check my paperwork and make sure that everything's in there. Sometimes my inclusions or exclusions will actually become an attachment to the contract because there's too much to fit in there, right? Now, let's say you go built-in furniture, okay? So built-in furniture, that would be things like wardrobes, built-in wardrobes. There's a built-in cupboard in the hallway. But let's say you're selling a house and the vendor goes, look, it used to be an Airbnb. I'm happy to include all the furniture, right? And you go, okay, cool. And you go to the buyer, look, da-da-da. And during negotiations, you go, look, by the way, a little bit extra and I can include all the furniture for you, right? And they go, awesome. And you do a deal when you're including the furniture. You can't just write furniture. You need to write 3-seater and 2-seater red fabric lounge in front lounge room, right? Floor rug in entry to hallway. You've got to be specific. You've got to detail every single item because if you end up in a court of law, I can guarantee you anyone that's had to go through court for real estate, even if you win, there goes 12 months of your life and your results are going to come way down because you're distracted with headaches. So if you do things properly and you dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that everything is specific, you won't have any problems. Even things like, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, what are you going to do with your wall-mounted TVs? Oh, we're just going to leave them. Okay, so you're going to leave them. So Samsung, and 72-inch wall-mounted TV, right, in family area. Resort to your floor plan. What's your floor planner called the area that the item exists? Have they called it bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, bedroom 4 on the floor plan? And if they've called it bedroom 4 on the floor plan and that's where the item is, right, Samsung 72-inch wall-mounted TV in bedroom 4, in family room, in rumpus room, because then you can relate back, well, court of law, this is the floor plan that was given to the client for the marketing. That room was called sunroom. In here it says TV in sunroom, so that's clearly reverting to the TV that was present in that room. Here's a photo of that room at marketing, which shows that that is the particular room in question. You've got to be specific. You've got to be very detailed and specific, because the more detailed and specific you are, you'll totally be safe and you won't have any issues. Now, let's say.
Can I say another one beyond? Sorry, just a butt in. There was an agent up here that sold a property, and the vendors, the big palm trees, you know how they're worth a fortune. The vendors sold the palm tree, you know, one of the palm trees out the front. So, you know, it's like if you, just to avoid confusion or avoid upsets, you might even put something very expensive like that in the inclusions. Like, it might seem silly, but if the buyers turn up and that palm tree's gone and that's what they love, you know, put that in too. It's not going to hurt. It might seem silly, but if it's gone and the vendors have sold it for 50 grand or 60 grand or whatever they can sell them for, because they're very expensive, that could cause a lot of trouble. Yeah.
And that's what we've got to ask some questions. Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, I know you've got 3 brand new split systems that you've just installed. Are any of them under hire purchase? Is there any loan or credit on any of those? Have you gone to Harvey Norman and done interest free on any of them or anything like this? Oh, yes, they're actually Harvey Norman 64 months interest free. Put the details in there, right? Let it be known. Is there a security system? Yes. Is it a rented? Is it one where they bought the security system and now they're just paying separate monitoring? Or is it one of these ones where you sign up for a 5-year plan, you pay $10 a week and they give you the system for free? And that's included. You've got to be very specific and very detailed with all of this stuff. Exclusions. Oh, we're going to be taking the wall-mounted TVs with us. Okay. Are you going to be taking the wall brackets with you as well? If you are, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, then you need to patch, paint and repair that entire wall, right? Be very specific and very clear about it with people. Exclusions. So you might go TV and wall bracket in external, rumpus room. And then write vendor will patch, repair and repaint entire wall to match the other 3 walls, right? Very specific. If it's in the sales agency agreement, your vendor then can't turn around and go, I don't have to patch and paint that wall. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, the sales agency agreement you signed, you said you were taking the TV and wall bracket in the external rumpus room, and I put in brackets there that you would patch, repair and repaint the entire wall to match the other 3 walls. So they're not painting it pink or green or blue or yellow or whatever, right? Just specific details. Is it tenanted? Yes. Get the details of the tenants, the managing agent, the commencement date, the end of date, the rental rate, right? Make sure that everything's in here specifically. If there's anything that's been improved without council consent, oh yes, the large 10 by 5 meter garage was replaced in 1986 and previously had a 3 meter by 3 meter garage in its place. No council approval was given to increase the size when built, right? Now, some rules will exist, like a 10-year rule, that if something's been sitting there for more than 10 years, for example, and check again with your state legislation. Oh, if it's been there for more than 10 years, they can't really ask you to pull it back down, right? Or if it's been there for more than 5 years, they can't ask you to pull it back down. But once again, specific details. You can't leave things blank on a sales agency agreement, right? Make sure that you're marketing, that every single bit of marketing that you're charging for them is in here. And let's say, for example, you've got a whole marketing schedule with no video and no social media, and the video on social media is $1,000. And let's say that we go into the campaign and it's week 2, and they go, you know what, guys, we want to add the video on the social media now. Don't just send them the secure exchange link to pay for the video on the social media. What you need to do is you basically need to, I'm going to get out of that form because that was just a test. What you basically need to do is you need to go back into here, go into your subscription forms, go into your agency agreements, subsequent residential sales agency agreement, right? Or variation of sales agency agreement, or addendum to agency agreement. And you might go addendum to agency agreement. I'll just call it test again. Right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to copy all the details in further terms. The vendors now agree to include a property video and social media campaign at an additional cost of $1,000. The previous marketing schedule was for a total of $3,000, and the new total for all marketing shall now be $4,000. Right? Specific details, guys. Because if you dot your I's and cross your T's, trust me, there's going to become a time where someone's going to get upset with you along the way because they've missed out on a property or something. They're just going to get upset for some reason. And when that happens, you can go documentation that you signed, documentation that you signed, documentation that you signed, 100% transparency and honesty, 100% transparency and honesty, 100% transparency and honesty. I can understand you're upset. However, I've done nothing wrong. If you wish to take it further, you're more than welcome to. But there's a paper trail here that shows everything clearly. Also, when I'm communicating with my vendors and you get price reductions and things like that, right? You can also go back in here, the further terms. Let's say this person wanted $1 million and now they want to add the social media, but now they're happy to take $950,000, right? You go, the vendor's acceptable sale price will now be $950,000 in lieu of the previous acceptable amount of $1 million, right? Specific details, guys. Cover yourself. I do a lot of text messages with my vendors. I call them, but then I reiterate what I've told them in a text message and SMS, because a text message and SMS is still a paper trail. An email is still a paper trail, right? Hey, Renz, would you mind? We need to do a price alignment, a price adjustment on the property. Yeah, that's cool, Bjorn. No worries at all. And I go and do that. Hold on, Bjorn. How come you're advertising that price now? Well, we agreed last night. Renz might have been drunk last night for all we know and just agreed to something that in the heat of the moment. Well, Renz, this is the documentation that I sent to you and you actually signed it. Do you not remember this? Do you know what I'm saying? So paper trails, email alerts, right? If you're handling a sale, let's say you've sold a property, and let's say you've sold a property subject to the sale of another property, right? So let me just go into here for an example. I've just done that recently with this particular property at Kumara Drive. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly show you the contract. In a contract of sale, there's a section which states for subject to finance. So I'll put latest date of approval, Monday, the 3rd of February, 2025 by 5 p.m. Very specific. The amount of the loan, $1,065,000. Very specific. The interest rate, 9% or less than. Very specific. The property to be secured, 32 Kumara Drive, Greenwith, SA. Who the loan's through in brackets with the details of the mortgage broker. Sale of the purchase of property. This contract is conditional upon the purchaser entering into contract on or before the 12th day of February 2025 for the property at this address for a price no less than $680,000 or such lesser sum that the purchaser may accept, and settlement occurring on or before the 8th day of April. Now, I'm handling this sale. Let's say Tony from LJ Hooker was their selling agent for 4 Munyon Street, Surrey Downs. As an agent, what I should do straight away is contact Tony from LJ Hooker and say, Tony, I'm Bjorn Kunzel. Your clients have just purchased a property from me at 32 Kumara Drive. I just want to liaise with you and I want to let you know the dates that we're talking about in regards to getting things done. So we need them to be in contract by the 12th of February 2025. They put down a minimum sale price of 680,000, and the settlement date we're looking at is around the 8th of April 2025. Keep in contact with that agent, right? Because I can tell you, let's say these vendors, oh, we've got to do 4 weeks of painting, whatever, and and you sit back blasé and you don't worry about it. And then Tony goes, oh, Bjorn, by the way, they're not going to be going on the market until, probably the end of February now. Okay, let me talk to my vendor. Talk to my vendor. Yeah, that's okay, Bjorn. Oh, that's all right, Tony. No, that's fine. It's not a problem at all, mate. They go on the market at the end of February. As long as we can still make that settlement date of April. Cool, Bjorn, no worries. If I don't do an addendum, if I don't complete an addendum to increase the date that they need to enter into a contract with, two things can happen here. One, my vendor can get badass, and my vendor can decide, even if they sell their property, that it was outside of the contractual dates, seek legal advice and try to pull out of the contract because the dates haven't been met. Or the buyer can turn around and sell their property and then go, you know what? I don't want to buy that property anymore. It was meant to be under contract by the 12th of February. It's now the 1st of March, so I'm outside of the contract stipulation, so I don't really need to go ahead. Now, regardless of where that ends up in a court of law, regardless of where a judge rules it, guess where it's going? It's going to a freaking court of law, right? It's going to a court of law. Oh, yeah, but Bjorn, they've got to be obligated because there's steps 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And it doesn't matter, man. You're still ending up in court. But if there's an addendum done stating that the purchaser shall now have until the 1st of March to enter into a contract of sale, and the settlement date shall now be adjusted from the 8th of April until the 30th of April, for example, guess what? There's an addendum in place. It's a contract. It's legally being held up. There is no court of law. Regardless of who's right or wrong, you never end up in a court of law. Eric, you've been around for a long time. Can you chip in with any of your experiences that you've seen that people might have made mistakes with or whatever that have been really costly for them, and how to avoid those perhaps?
I've had a number of staff over a period of years, and I used to train people up pretty well, and a number of them went out and worked somewhere else or started their own business. But I remember too that I can't remember who the trainer was, but basically they went on fire, made a fair bit of money, and then they made some mistake. I never found out what it was, but it was something along the line. Anyway, they lost their business, and so both of them went broke, and I ended up selling one of the guys' houses as a mortgagee sale. So it wasn't just desserts, but it was kind of like, yep, you got to do things right. I've had probably half a dozen occasions where people have taken me to task with the Real Estate Institute or the Bok Bar or whatever, and because I've had everything documented, and phone calls, and obviously we didn't have in long days, we didn't have emails and stuff, but everything was written down. And any conversation I had with anybody, I made sure it was completely full, written down with all details noted, dates, times, etc., etc. So when we presented this to wherever, there was no case to answer. So it's very, very important you tell people exactly what's going on and leave no stone unturned.
Another thing I see is people write under other conditions subject to building and pest inspection. When? In 2086, in 2024, in 1993, like when? That's why we've got clauses here like building and pest inspection report. And you can see down here, it says the date, 16th of January 2025 by 5 p.m. And it also stipulates all these other terms in that particular report as well. So don't just write subject to building and pest inspection report, right? Because that is vague. They could buy the house and get a building and pest inspection report 2 years later, court of law. Like there's so many things that you can find yourself in if you're vague. Sorry, who was going to ask the question?
I got a question on this.
Yeah, mate. Yep.
So I had a similar scenario where they put where we put a building and pest inspection date, and the prospective buyers now they're happy with the previous report done by the vendors 2 years ago. So they haven't done the inspection done now. So should I communicate via email, because the date was 25th of January by which they have to give us anything, which they haven't. So what do I need to ask them, or what should I do there?
I would have never, ever, ever given them a building and pest report from 2 years ago that belonged to somebody else for starters.
Okay.
It's in there. If they want to get a building and pest inspection report, Has there been one done previously? Yes, it has, but it was done a long time ago. If you are concerned about building and pest inspection, go and get your own report done. Don't give them a report that anyone else has done it. Don't get involved with that stuff. Don't try to help people out by giving them extra information. Say you're within your rights to get your building and pest inspection done. Now that date's lapsed now. They had the ability, if they wanted to go and get their building and pest inspection done, and they chose not to because they might have been tight on money or whatever. But you should not have given them a report from 2 years ago or more. You shouldn't have got involved in that.
Well,
Right.
beyond, I would say sometimes the vendors might say, look, we bought the property like that. Here's our building and pest inspection. Like if you did do that, I have done that previously. But it would be, that this is one from a long time ago, and I suggest that you get your own. It could help the sale if it's something that the vendor says, look, that wasn't a problem. I had it all, all sort of investigated, or engineers' reports or whatever. But I would definitely write, to say that that you are, you've opted not to get another building and pest inspection against advice or whatever, and you're going by one from 2 years ago or whatever. I think it's all just a paper trail. It's all just covering arms. That's
All right. I will just email them. Hey guys, the building date has gone past, and so we're just proceeding ahead. So only subject to finance is left.
You don't even need to email them, Amol. Like it's their responsibility as a purchaser to read through a contract and understand the contract, the dates are in the contract. If you email them about something like that could come up as you're emailing them because you're covering. Oh yes, awesome. The date's passed. Hey guys, by the way, your date's passed. You're not allowed to get a building and pest inspection. I would just leave it because it's in the contract.
All right.
But okay, with me, any addendums that need to be done, I get them through the conveyancer. Any Form 1s that need to be served, the conveyancer serves them. Anything that needs to be done on a legal basis, I don't get involved. Hey, Bjorn, should we get a building and pest inspection report? I would advise every single purchaser that they should get a building and pest inspection report on any property, regardless of any circumstances, for your own peace of mind, because I don't want you to come back to me in the future and say, you told me not to get one. Who should we get our building and pest inspection report through, Bjorn? I can't advise you on that. If you wish and you don't know any builders, I can give you 5 or 6 names or numbers for you to choose from that have done inspections for previous purchases, but I cannot recommend anybody, and I will not recommend a building inspector to you. You need to do your own due diligence, and you need to choose your own building inspector. Oh, Bjorn, who should we get a building inspector to? I'll go through this guy, Craig, because Craig's dodgy and Craig gets the deals through, right? Court of law, career lost. Bjorn recommended this building inspector to me. He's dodgy. The house was full of white ants. He didn't pick up on it, right? Oh, we got a building and pest inspection done. The house is full of white ants. The builder didn't pick up on it. I never recommended the builder. That's between you and the builder. Go and seek legal advice between you and the builder, right?
Actually,
like you've got to distance yourself from everything, guys. We are property marketers and property negotiators and prospectors. That is all we are. Property marketers.
Somebody you and I know are buying a property up here in Queensland, and the agent gave them a building and pest inspection from the vendor that was done recently. And then the person that we know went in and did a building and pest, and there was an active termite mound under the house. He went to the agent and said, look, the report you gave me is wrong. There's actually an active termite under the house. And the agent said, I'm sorry, that was your expert. We have our own expert, and we're going to go by what we have here. That's what she said to him. And somebody else bought the house.
Absolutely ridiculous. These are the things that determine a long, successful career of 16 years and sleeping at night knowing that nobody's chasing me because I've done nothing wrong. Assume this, guys. The best way to tackle all of this stuff is, if you don't know something, be honest with people. You'd be surprised if a buyer goes, what's this, what's that? And you go, I'm sorry, I don't know, but let me try to find out. Or you're welcome to get a building inspector. Or don't make anything up. Never, ever make up anything. If you're not 100% sure, say, I don't know, I will find out. What are the strata fees? I don't know, I will find out. What are the strata fees? I think they're around $500 a quarter. Well, what happens when they're actually $767 a quarter, right? Guys, if you don't know, hello, I don't know, but I'll find out, and I'll get documentation.
I think every agent, we should have, I always call it the board of directors or your brains trust. You should always have a good solicitor, a good conveyancer, an accountant, building and pest inspector. As you said, Bjorn, you've got to be careful with referring some of these people, but for your own, your own brains trust, finance, and you've got those people that you can always go back to if there's a problem with something, that you've got someone that can help you through these things that is an expert. And also, obviously, you've got Chris, you've got Bjorn that you can run things past, you've got Tony, you've got the administration girls as well, as far as some of the legalities and everything in South Australia. But, to be sure, definitely have a conveyancer and solicitor that you've friended that can help you sometimes with some of these things as well.
And palm work off, like I've got a really good relationship with Sue Farina from SA Land Conveyancing and Stacey Farina. Somebody needs an addendum for an extension of a finance clause and an extension of a building inspection or something. I send them an email. Can you please send out an addendum to all parties involved? I stay out of it. Form 1. Hey, I've sold this property. Can you please serve the Form 1 on the purchasers? I send it to Sue Farina. She puts in the purchaser details. She serves the Form 1. She's got the paper trail. She's got the record of when it was sent. Everything like that, right? All I do is mark property, negotiate terms, and sell property and do contracts and make sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's very, very specifically. Now, in regards to how can you cover yourself? Well, I'm sure in every state you've got legal paperwork like council searches or certificates of title or Form 1 documents that we call them here. You might call them something else in a different state, whatever. If you go into Home Pass, you can upload all of the details of a property. So you go into Home Pass, and we've done this before, and you can go into a property like this one, 5 Henry Court. You can go into not contacts, not activity, but into details. And you can go in here, you can add a Form 1 and you can add a property report, right? You can add a document. So you can just click on that and you can add any document you want, right? And then what happens is if these little toggles are on, okay, when you send the welcome message from Home Pass, when you check somebody in, hey, what was your name? Lisa, fantastic. What was your mobile number? Fantastic. Have a good look around. Or what's the council rates? What are they? Lisa, if you click on the welcome message that I've just sent you, there's a section where you can download documents and all of the information pertaining to the property will be all in black and white in the Form 1 document for you. So all you need to do is click on that, enter your email address, get documents, and it will show you what documents are available, and you can download all those documents, and you're more than welcome to take them to your conveyancer to seek your own legal advice. All right? Simple. Palm stuff off, guys. Do everything you do every single day, assume that you're on Big Brother and there are cameras everywhere and there are microphones everywhere. Because if you assume that you're being recorded verbally and visually everywhere you go with everything you do, right, and you do the right thing, you will never get caught out. Yeah. Right.
And saying that too, Bjorn, so many houses have got cameras now. So be careful what you say. Because the vendors are probably going to replay your inspection to hear exactly what you said to the buyers. Don't tell them their personal situation. Don't say anything about the buyers. Don't say that they've had offers before. Don't say what you think they're going to accept. All of those things, like Bjorn said, you probably are on camera and you probably are being recorded.
Yeah, everything that I send out is SMS through Home Pass. So everything's documented. The SMSs I send to everybody, giving them a chance to make an offer, explaining to a buyer what the process is, that you'll be given a chance to make an initial offer by this particular date. And then after that particular date, I'll then rank where your offer sits. I'll say you're currently sitting first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever, right? I won't disclose any other information. Other than, where you're sitting currently. And then I'll give everybody another time and another final date to make a final offer. All offers are completely 100% confidential. You cannot ask me where other offers are or where anyone else's conditions are. It's completely confidential. And an offer substitutes the conditions along with the price to make a total offer. So you need to determine, Mr. Buyer, what is your absolute final price? You're currently in third place. What is your absolute best and final price that if you should miss out on this property, you won't get upset with myself for not giving you a final chance, but you're not going to get upset with yourself because you realise that it's sold for $5,000 more or $10,000 more or $5,000 less or whatever it might be. because you are paying the absolute best premium price that if you miss out, you're happy to walk away. Right? But I'll do it all through SMS and clear instructions on exactly what they need to do, exactly when they need to do it, exactly where they're at. So that way there's a paper trail of everything. Home Pass is absolutely brilliant. If anyone here isn't using Home Pass to check people in, guys, you're missing out on an avenue which protects you, protects your vendors, keeps a direct log of who's entered the property, gives you bulk SMS and communication, and enables you to then incorporate other documents such as drop form or whatever else in order to move forward with the sale. Now, this session isn't being held because somebody at eXp's done the wrong thing, right, guys? Don't get that in your heads at all. It was just raised by Celia, got me thinking, what am I going to do training on this week? Celia got me thinking when she asked the question, should I allow pre-settlement inspection when it's not in the contract? And I actually had a discussion with Celia about that, and Celia has been given advice from the conveyancer not to allow it. But it's Celia's own personal home as well, if that's okay for me to say that. So it was like a bit of a different scenario. So Celia, tell us about that. After everything that happened with the communication from the group in that last couple of days, what have you decided to do based on all of that?
I guess sort of going back to the purchaser, I had given them that opportunity in the first week. Come back, do what you need to, take measurements, have another look, any questions, and that was declined. So I kind of left it. Of course, now the house is not styled, packing, stuff everywhere. Cleaners are coming in the day before settlement. And yes, they requested pre-settlement inspection, which we're pretty busy at the moment as well, so we're not really around, and there's a day of tidying up and whatever. But then the conveyancer just said to me, look, we strongly advise not to do that. They're requesting 3 days before settlement. They've had ample time to come back with questions. And I just said to them, look, is there any, can you let me know the reason for this? What are you concerned about? Is there any questions I can answer? I can send you photos, So, we have gone above and beyond to help them, but they're like, well, this is something that does happen. We've done it previously with another agent, with another home that we've sold. And, I just said, look, the place is a mess. I was honest with them. Yeah. And it is difficult being vendor and and the agent, because probably the first home that I've sold like that. So, the emotion is there, which is hard to sort of separate that from being the agent. But, I'd love to say, come around and have a look. But, yeah, we are in a mess. Things haven't been tidied, and they will be, by settlement. But, conveyancer strictly said, it opens a can of worms. They could walk in and say, what are you going to do about this? Or we didn't see that, and you need to repair this. And, it can work against you. So just don't do it. We don't do an NSA. It's not common. So I just took their advice, and I emailed them yesterday, the purchaser, and I didn't, I was friendly and polite, but I didn't obviously offer for them to come through. I said, look, it's only a few days. And the questions were repairs, the TV wall mounts, or what do we do with the remotes on the garage? And I said, they're all the things that we'll run through on settlement day. We've put aside ample time to be with you, show you how everything works, give you your manuals, your warranties, and, everything you usually do. But they were wanting to do that before handover, which, I just had to explain, look, this is what we do on the day.
I guess every state's different too. Like I was licensed in New South Wales, and it was kind of standard practice that everybody did pre-settlement inspections just in case, say, a tree went through the house or something, then it would be that vendor's insurance policy, not the buyer's insurance policy. So, it's sort of like, depending on where you are, it could be standard policy to do those settlements too. I'm just wondering, Mark's been in real estate a long time, hasn't he? Mark, you've been in time. Yeah. What have you seen other agents do that have got themselves into trouble? Like whether it's been being sued or they've had to buy things that weren't in contracts. What have you seen over your years?
I think you need to be really, really careful with. I was going to bring it up with Bjorn before about the security system. I think tenant. I've been called out with a few things. Tenants' curtains, where you'd automatically think that window treatments, fixtures, fittings are included. However, the tenant had changed the curtains over. Wasn't aware. I think it cost me about $800 for curtains in a unit. So these things do occur. Alarm systems are another one where you can get burnt. Don't just assume because there's an alarm pad there and there are some sensors up in the corner of a room that the home has a security system.
Absolutely.
Again, being in the industry for 23 years, I've been burnt with that one too. It cost me a whole new alarm system in a house. The vendors indicated to me that the house had an alarm, and does it work? Yeah, it works. We haven't used it for a few years. Buyers moved in, got back to me and found out there was actually no panel in the main control panel. It was just the pad on the wall and a few sensors in the ceiling that just been left there. So it ended up costing me a lot of money as well. So
legally, you probably didn't have to do that, but it's also just, doing the right thing. Whereas, we've got a right. So how do you now handle that? What do you do to make sure that doesn't happen to you again?
As Bjorn said, I think after, a length of time and you do get your fingers burnt a few times, you become very, very, ask lots more questions. You become very more detailed in your approach to make things happen. So
spend more time on the
document everything. Yeah, correct.
And a lot more disclaimers. Make sure you get your building and pest inspection done. Like, why didn't the building and pest inspector check that? Isn't that part of their requirements as well? But it's like, make sure you're happy with absolutely everything, because that's the person that's going to, that's going to tell you everything. What about you, Anthony? You've been in real estate a long time, haven't you?
Well, funnily enough that you should say it, I reckon the second house I sold, I looked at, and it had ducted air conditioning vents, so I advertised that it had ducted evaporative cooling, but there was actually no unit on the roof. So I was actually lucky that I didn't get sued. I've never been bitten, but I spend, I go about my day as if I'm going to be sued. So from the agency, I spend time roping the vendor into as much as you possibly can. I don't promote alarm systems at all, because Murphy's Law will say that it doesn't work, et cetera, et cetera. So, but on an agency, you really got to bolt down the vendor, ask them everything, spend the time. And when you're actually contracting, really be heavy duty on inclusions and exclusions. Interestingly enough, you were talking about curtains from tenancies, et cetera, et cetera. That's also the importance if you're actually selling a property that's been a rental. That's why it's also important to have a look at their lease, because things like curtains should be written in that. Anything that they've included, anything they want to take, because that's your way out. So if you're exemplary, then the fight will be between the purchaser and the vendor and the conveyancer, not yourself.
And one thing I'll always do when I've got a tenanted property is I'll always go out and meet with the tenant. I'll never call the tenant, tell them what's happening in your house. I'll say, can I come and meet with you? I'll get the vendor's take on things, what's included and what's not included. And then I'll go and meet with the tenants and I'll explain the process and that I understand this is your home and I'm going to respect you and let's work together. And I'm not one of these typical real estate agents that just rings people up and tells them this is what's happening and when. I'm going to work with you as best I can. On that, is there anything that you've put into the property yourself that you'll be taking with you if we don't find another investor, like curtains, or is the dishwasher yours, for example? Don't just assume because there's a dishwasher there that it's the landlord's. It could be the tenant that's put it in there. They might have rented the property as a brand new home with no dishwasher, and they've decided that, hello, Mr. Landlord, is it okay if we put a dishwasher in? Yeah, go for it as long as you pay for it. Okay, and they put their own dishwasher in, right? And another thing is as well, like communicating obviously with the tenants and then the landlords to make sure that everything's above board. But the other thing I wanted to say is getting back to building inspections, right? Sometimes you'll have a building inspection done on a property and it'll be like, oh yeah, we want to go through with the property, but it needs new gutters and the bathroom needs to be resealed and it needs new tapware and we want new downpipes installed, right? Now I'm going to share my screen again here. I learned this really, really, really quickly in my career. Works to be carried out by a vendor prior to settlement. The only works that I'll ever write there is general cleaning of the property inside and out, including mowing of the lawn, so the property is handed to the purchaser in the same condition as when the property was presented for open inspections during the marketing campaign. I will never put painting this wall, replacing gutters, fixing downpipes. Okay, painting of the wall. What? I can get a paintbrush and paint the wall.
Yeah.
What colour? What type of paint? What grade of paint? What type of brush? Works to be completed prior to settlement. One of our agents who's no longer with us anymore, and I won't say his name, but he was with us very early. He put down the entire house had to be painted prior to settlement. And guess what? He tried to save a buck, and he went and said to the vendors, you guys need to paint the house. It's going to cost you $5,000. His painters couldn't do it. So guess what he thought he'd do? He thought it was a great idea to paint the house himself. And so he painted the house himself, and the buyers came through and it looked like absolute shit. And when I found out what happened, I absolutely ripped into him. And I told him that you've jeopardized the company, you've jeopardized yourself, you've been dishonest, you've tried to make the money from it. You don't carry out works. You are not a painter. You are not an electrician. You are not a plumber. You are not a gardener. We are real estate agents first, foremost, and final. Do not do that. Now, with works to be carried out prior to settlement, Mr. and Mrs. Purchaser, I understand that you're considering those things and that you want new taps put in and you want new gutters put in and you want paint put in. The problem is, what if the gutters aren't put into your standards? What if the paint's not done to your standard? What if the taps put in aren't what you're happy with? The best way to tackle this, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, is to come back to me with a costing that you think those things are worth, and let's renegotiate the price. You take the home as it is, you accept the property exactly as it is for face value, and we renegotiate with the vendor, because I've done works prior to settlement before and it's turned into a nightmare, and the purchasers haven't been happy and the vendors haven't been, and it's turned into a nightmare. So the easiest thing to do goes, okay, painting that's worth $2,500 to me, new gutters, that's going to be $3,000. Look, you know what, Bjorn? It's going to be about $7,000 worth of work, but if we meet in the middle at $3,500, we're happy to continue with the property. Put it in an email and send it through to me before the cooling off period expires or before the date on the building contract. Dear Bjorn, we wish to inform that we only wish to proceed to the property if there is a reduction of $3,500 because the house needs A, B, and C. We've quoted these things up to be $7,000. We're being reasonable and meeting halfway. If the vendor reduces the price by $3,500 from X amount to X amount, we will continue on with the purchase of the property. Forward that email minus the purchase details to your vendor and ask them to respond in writing via email to that email saying, yes, Bjorn, we agree on the new purchase price. Then forward that to your conveyancer and get your conveyancer to draw up an addendum for the new purchase price, and then works to be carried out by vendor prior to settlement just says general cleaning of the property inside and out, including mowing of the lawns to ensure the property is handed to the purchaser in the same condition as inspected during the marketing campaign. That's it, because anything else will bite in the ass. This particular agent had to then go and pay out of their own pocket for painters that the purchaser chose themselves to repaint the house, and it cost him about $8,000. So not only did they not make a commission on that property, but they actually were out of pocket about that property made them minus $4,000 roughly. Right? You don't want to be in that situation, guys. If you don't know about something, ask me, ask Chris, ask Mark, ask Anthony, ask Eric. There's a lot of experienced agents here. Just ask. I'm sure everyone's happy to help.
Can I just throw in one more thing, because I know we've got to wrap up soon. There was an agent that I know of in Rose Bay, one of the top agents down there, and somebody I know was selling down there. The agent never wrote that the property was tenanted, so nobody ever issued notices to the tenant to move out. So it was supposed to be vacant possession. So the purchaser went to go to the property and there's tenants in there. So they weren't even told. So the vendor, he had a whole lot of other settlements that were happening beforehand. Like there was a whole trail. So he had to offer the tenants to put them up at a hotel for 2 weeks or something like that, just to get them out. He had to pay that, then took it out of the agent's commission.
On that as well, there is a section here, tenancies if applicable, right? Now, let's say, for example, the property's settling in July and the tenant's lease ends in June and the current landlord has served them with notice. Then tenants, if applicable, you can state no, but then what you do is under here where it says other conditions, you would write, this property is currently tenanted. However, the settlement is subject to vacant possession. Settlement will only occur once confirmation that the tenant has vacated and that any works needed to be completed by the tenant have been rectified prior to settlement, right? So you put it in there that it will only settle if it is vacant. Because if that tenant decides that they're not going to move out on the 1st of June and the settlement's on the 1st of July, they've got to go through trial, tribulation, all these sort of, they've got to take them to whatever the rental courts are, whatever. So just because the lease expires, don't assume that it's going to, you know, the tenant's definitely going to be out there. Make sure you write subject to vacant possession. If the tenancy is going to remain in place, well, then make sure you tick on here, tenancies, yes. And you put in the tenant's details, whether it's fixed or periodic, all the full details, the rent payable, you know, per week, whether there's a bond lodged with CBS, yes or no. And don't get that information just from your vendor. Contact the property manager of that property and find out from that property manager exactly what the situation is with that particular property, and liaise with that property manager throughout the process to confirm, has the tenant vacated? Yes, they have, Bjorn. Has the tenant left any damage? Yes, Bjorn. They've done this and this, and now we need to go and get extra money out the bond to rectify those things. Well, you know, make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's. Assume you're always being recorded. If you're not sure about something, ask. But this is really important because this is the sort of stuff that will be sitting around in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, 40 years' time with a successful career, or you do one thing wrong that ends you up in a court of law, and next thing you're working at Coles for 40 grand a year, and you're stuffed. You've gone back from this opportunity to earn 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, $600,000 a year down to, in all due respect to anyone who does work at Coles, back to an average wage, right? That was just an example. There's nothing wrong with working at Coles, all right? That's totally fine. But what I'm getting at is we earn a lot of money for what we do, but there are legal obligations and legal responsibilities that come with that. And our vendors are relying upon us and the conveyancer to make sure that we protect them. And whilst we're protecting them, we also want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. So everything we do, make sure we do it with high integrity. If we don't know about something, be honest and say we don't know. Like Celia said, she was extremely honest with her purchases. 100% the way to go, all right? So if you're not sure about something, just ask, and there will always be somebody there to help you. But that's it for today, unless anyone's got anything else to say. I've got to go to a show through in half an hour. So unless anyone else wants to add anything, we'll wrap it up.
I just want to add, make your conveyancer your friend as well. I mean, I've been in the industry forever and a day, but I'll tell you what, every time I've got a curly question, I go straight to the conveyancer for the legal descriptions. You know, that's what they're paid for. That's what they're there for. And at the end of the day, they're going to be handling your contract. So if something goes wrong with it, it's their problem because of the advice they give. Make your conveyancer your friend. But I think just in closing, rope as many people into everything. Like, it all starts at the agency from, do you know if anything is working or not working, boundary misalignments. Go straight to your vendor and document it on the agency. Get as much information out as you can, because at the end of it, you know, they're really the ones responsible. Also, the last thing I want to say, be careful out there. Go about your day as if everyone's trying to sue you, because I'm telling you, most of them are. There are a hell of a lot of purchasers out there that know the system. They know that it's not your fault. They know that you didn't create the problem, but they'll try to get you into court because they know that you'll settle on money.
Absolutely. I direct so many of the questions that I have with my purchasers and vendors to my conveyancer. And my conveyancer really feels like the eXp admin team. So I rely on the eXp admin team to do all the back end stuff, and I really rely on Jenny Rogers, who is I've been with her for 4 years. She was the first conveyancer. She's the only conveyancer. She's my bestie. And yeah, that I will double down on what you just said, Anthony. Your conveyancer, you have to, it's not just professional, you need to have like a really great friendship with them. They are your backbone.
A tip on that, find a conveyancer that's happy to give you their mobile number and happy to take calls out of hours, right? I've called Sue Farina. It's a funny story. I rang Sue Farina once and rang for a couple of times. She asked me, she goes, hold on, let me grab a towel. She's got a pool at her house. And I said, oh, awesome, great day for a swim. She goes, no, I'm just getting out of the shower, but I saw you ringing. I thought it must be important because you're ringing out of hours. So I needed to answer your call. And I was like, la, 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 too much information, too much visual there. But thank you very much. And that's the sort of service that a conveyancer that's really good should give. There's so many conveyancers that sometimes people choose that a vendor goes, oh, no, I want to use this person or I want to use that person. I won't say any names. And I am banging my head against a brick wall. I send them an email. It takes 5 hours to get a response back. I call somebody in admin answers. And I'll get them to get back to you. 3 hours later, I still haven't heard from them. And it's something I needed urgently. If I call Sue, just give me a sec, Bjorn. I'm just with somebody. Guys, just give me 1 minute. What do you need? CT for that? Okay, cool. Yep. Stacey, can you get that to Bjorn? Bang, 2 minutes later, in my account. And I might be with a customer right there and then. Done.
Exactly that.
So
Exactly.
Conveyancer, Anthony, Tony, what you said, doesn't matter who you use, just make sure they're really good, make sure they're available. If it's interstate and use solicitors, get a really good relate, make them your best mate is really, really, really wonderful advice, guys.
Yeah,
Just quick one. Yeah, quick
excuse me, Bjorn. Just
Oh.
a quick question regarding building in a pest.
Yep.
I had, one of the recent incidents, like, normally I put a like building and pest needs to be done within a cooling off period as specified with the date and time. So this guy has done it, and then he was like, okay, I want to have a look at the property prior to the settlement. I was like, okay, that's fine, because the owner has already moved out. There was no issues at all. And then once he moved in, he gave me a call back. He was like, his air con is not working properly. I was like, what do you mean by that? It was like the air flow is not there, so it's not cooling, as efficiently as it should be. I was like, have you, done your building in the past, and what did the inspector say? And this guy told me that that is not the scope of a building and a pest inspector. So I was just curious, like, does a building and a pest inspector does cover things like aircon, electricity, and all that?
Some won't check anything electrical, appliances, ovens, air conditioning. I mean, some building inspectors, you wonder what they're actually doing at all.
It's buyer beware. It's up to the purchasers. It's up to the purchaser's due diligence to make sure that everything is in order. So I would say to that guy, look, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. Under South Australian law, it's buyer beware. You had a building inspector come through. You could have come through with the building inspector and checked all those things. Building inspectors usually don't check ovens, cooktops, air conditioners. They just check structural integrity. So it's buyer beware. Unfortunately, sorry, it's buyer beware.
Is there any way, like, sort of to protect ourselves, because we advertise the properties on realestate.com with all those things and say
check it yourself. Make
Well,
sure
it was working. It was working. It just wasn't working amazingly. It's still working.
I always ask the vendors whether there's any appliances that actually don't work in the property, just to get a bit of an idea, so we don't go there and don't advertise it, or we can let the buyer know.
Yeah. And actually, so does the conveyancer as part of their Form 1 form. The question's also in there. Is there anything you're aware of boundary-wise or things not working? So you are covered. It's not your responsibility.
I love it how hot water systems just somehow magically die on the first day of when they move in.
Murphy's Law.
It worked before.
It's Murphy's Law.
Saab, when you're not covered is when they go, has the house got air conditioning? Oh, yeah, the house has got the best air conditioner, like it's ducted, refrigerator. It is absolutely awesome. It feels like winter in there. Start dribbling shit to people and exaggerate like that. Then they can come back and go, well, you told me it was the best air conditioner and it felt like winter inside the house. That was bullshit. You're in trouble. Has it got air conditioning? Yes, it does. What's it like? I'm not too sure. I'll have it on at the end. Take a look for yourself. Always distance yourself. Always distance yourself. But I'm going to go, because otherwise I won't make my appointment.
Yeah, Bourne, one quick one, 30 seconds. Important to maintain relationships with people. One of the extreme examples of one of our sales is about 2 decades ago plus, one of our vendors was murdered in their house by their ex-partner.
Wow.
Okay. The sale and settlement still went through because we communicated with the purchaser, and it was a very sad occasion, lots of other stuff. But the reality was that everything was above board, nothing to do with the real estate agent, but maintaining relationships and talking to people is exceedingly important. So thank you very much, Vaughan, for your efforts today.
Good input, and thanks for contributing, guys. Full disclosure, full honesty, full ethical transparency. Don't say more than what you need to, right? Buyer beware. Make sure
Agent
you got your
beware.
eyes across your T's, and let's all kick some butt. All right. Catch you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Good luck,
boys.
everyone.
See
Have a
you
great,
later.
Bye.
have a great